Hi, and welcome to another edition of Audiobook Theater Live. My name is Jeffrey Kafer, and today I'm going to be letting you in on the actual recording session of Guardian of Darkness, written by Katie Reus, of which I'm also the cover model. Anyway, this is a fantasy romance or a paranormal romance. It's got wolves and vampire shifters and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, gonna hop right into it. This is Guardian of Darkness. Chapter 5. Vega's eyes flew open at a slight whisper of sound that meant she wasn't alone in her room. Heart racing, she didn't bother reaching for a weapon. Instead, she let her claws release and had started to jump from her bed when fingers wrapped around her throat. She sucked in a hard breath as Gabriel pinned her underneath him on the bed. All thoughts of fighting fled her body as she stared up at him. Rage burned in his green eyes, but he didn't squeeze her throat. He would never. No, he was pissed, which meant he knew what she'd done, and was showing her that. But he wasn't going to hurt her. And she really liked the feel of him on top of her, even if he was just straddling her. She clenched her legs together as an ache started to spread. She should be asking him what the hell he was doing, but she liked... She should be asking him what the hell he was doing, but she liked this way too much. Liked him being on top of her. Wondered what it would be like if they were naked and their positions were reversed. Or if he was behind her. She arched her body up, making his green eyes go bright with hunger. Moonlight streamed in from the slat blinds, but she didn't need the light to see him. Not when her own gaze lit up the harsh profile of his oh-so-beautiful face. He'd hate that she thought of him as beautiful, but he was a perfect male specimen. Taller than her by about 6 inches, he was huge, broad-shouldered and ripped. But he moved like a damn feline, something else he'd also hate the thought of. His dark hair was cropped close, not that it really mattered. He could have long hair or no hair because there was no denying the perfect structure of his face. Or his... It's a phlegmy day. Or his eyes, which seemed to dominate everything. He was walking, talking sex. He dropped his grip on her throat and leaned down so that he was hovering over her without actually touching her, his hands on either side of her head. You're fucking robbing and killing people? That's why you can't go home for Christmas? His voice was savage as he stared down at her in disgust. And his question pissed her off. She punched him in the middle of the chest, shoving him off her. What I do is none of your fucking business. Either she'd taken him by surprise or he'd wanted to move because he jumped off the bed, putting distance between them, as if he couldn't stand to be near her, which sliced at her. He actually thought she was a common thief and a killer. The covers fell away from her body as she slid out of bed, the silk of the sheets too much against her oversensitized skin. Wearing only a skin-tight tank top and her underwear made her feel way too vulnerable in front of him, but she stood her ground. You followed me? She shouldn't be surprised, but her parents had never let on they'd sent someone to follow her. And hell, she'd left on a plane. How had he... Oh, she was so stupid. Her fucking phone. He must have tracked her that way. His gaze scanned her from head to toe, pausing as he swept over her bare legs. Taking her by surprise, the male swallowed hard before he seemed to get himself together. You're coming home with me. Tonight. Pack your shit. And if I find that male you were with, I'm gonna gut him alive. She blinked at his tone, at his assumption that she'd do what he ordered. Snorting, she flopped back on the bed and stretched out. I'm not going anywhere with you, so you can take your bullshit attitude and head home alone. He took a deep breath, his wolf in his eyes, but remained where he was. What are you involved in? I infiltrated that place after you left before the cops and fire department arrived. Oh yeah, she was not answering his questions. Even though she felt like a bitch, she just stared... Even though she felt like a bitch, she just arched an eyebrow and placed her hands behind her head, the picture of nonchalance. What place? Don't fuck with me, Vega. He started pacing, looking like a caged wolf, as if he was trying to figure out his next move. Oh, how sexy she found it. He was wearing all black, his long-sleeved t-shirt straining against his upper arm muscles. He'd shoved the sleeves up so his forearms were revealed. And what the hell, even his forearms were sexy. She'd blocked out thoughts of him for 2 years, forced herself not to focus on him or fantasize about him. But here he was in her temporary bedroom at the foot of her bed, looking a little wild and a lot sexy. It revved up something inside her, something she had no control over. Heat flooded between her thighs as she shifted slightly against the bed. She tried to stop the scent of her arousal, but there was no use. She couldn't control her wolf's reaction to the male. Simply couldn't do it. Not anymore. He paused mid-stride, his nostrils flaring ever so slightly. Instead of looking at her, he gave her his back, his posture rigid as he took a ragged breath. He might as well have mushmouth. He might as well have physically struck her for the effect his reaction had on her. God, was it so awful that she was attracted to him? Was she so awful? She sucked in a breath, thought it was like trying to breathe past shards of glass. Just like that, her arousal fizzled and died. Screw him. And that's it. That's Guardian of Darkness by Katie Reus, coming soon to Audible. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time on Audiobook Theater Live.